Ok, let's move on to Unit 7, Lesson 9. Unidade 7, Aula 9. Verbo haver. So we discuss this verb. We talked about this verb on Unit 6. I did an introduction to this verb. Not sure if you remember, but on Unit 6 we had like one lesson with a picture with two images with 6 differences between the images, and we had to compare those two images, and to do that we had to use this verbo haver, the word a. Okay, so today it's time to consolidate that information, and it's also time to tell you that this verb, and this verb, the translation for this verb is to be or to exist. It really depends on the context. So I was saying that it's time for you, time to tell you today that this verb, we also use this verb as a time expression, okay? And to be honest with you, it's a topic that it takes a little bit of time for students to be okay, to be comfortable with the way like you use this verb as a time expression. But one thing at a time, so let's start slowly. And let's start with the conjugation of the verb haver. So this is a verb that we can conjugate. We can conjugate this in the present tense. We are exploring the present tense, okay? And we can conjugate this verb for eu and tu and ele. Ele is here, right? It's a. And then, but we can also conjugate for nós and for eles, elas, and vocês. However, the way like we conjugate this verb, it's something that we teach on level A2. On level A1, and you are now finishing level A1, the only thing that we do is we just talk about how to conjugate this verb, the verb haver, in the third person of the singular. And as you can see, we have here a. And as you hopefully remember, a, the translation for a is there is or there are, okay? The rest of the conjugation, once again, it's something that you will learn on level A2, but let me be honest with you. Even on level A2, we teach the rest of the conjugation, but it's probably the rest of the conjugation. It's probably something that I use once every 2 years. Okay, so it's definitely not very relevant. What is really relevant? It's the third person of the singular. That is the word that you have here, a. So don't forget that this H is completely silent. So it's not ha, it's just a, okay? So if you're reading the alphabet, you would say A, B, C. So that a that you have to say when you're saying the alphabet in Portuguese, it's the same a that we have here, okay? Exactly the same. So the H is completely silent. Every time we have a word that starts with an H in Portuguese, that H is completely silent. Don't forget that. So once again, a is 99 no, maybe 90% of the cases when you see this word in a Portuguese text, it's because they are using this word, this a, as there is or there are. I'm going to show you these two examples. Há muito trânsito. So this is there is a lot of traffic. And then on number 2, we have há muitos carros. So in this case, the right way to translate this is there are many cars. Okay. And once again, I would say that 90% of the cases, when you see this this word, it's because the translation will be there is or there are. However, sometimes we also use this same word a as a time expression. And I'm going to explain you how we use this a as a time expression in a second. But let's start with this table here. And we have here expressões de tempo relativas ao passado. So time expressions that are connected with the past, with the simple past. So let's check these words. Ontem. Ontem, I'm sure that you know it means yesterday, right? Anteontem. Anteontem, it means the day before yesterday. Na semana passada, this means word by word, it's like in the, so nice, it's like in the, as you know, It's ein plus a, right? So this is in the last week. So last week, that's the translation in English, okay? No ano passado, same logic. So the translation is last year. And then we have here há 2 anos, há 3 anos, há 3 meses, há 6 meses, há 15 dias, há 2 semanas. I'm not going to translate this now because the translation here, it really depends how you're using this a, with which verb, in which context you're using this a as a time expression, okay? So before checking a few examples, let's check here what it says, the second part of this table. So we have expressões de tempo, so time expressions, and we have a, once again. And now I'm going to tell you that a, when you use a as a time expression, there are only two possibilities. Or the translation will be ago, right? Like I was in Italy 2 years ago, this example, and then in a few seconds or minutes, you will see a few 1 or 2 examples with me. Or sometimes you use a also as a time expression, and you'll translate this a like for an example. I've been studying Portuguese for 10 days. I've been living in this country for 2 years. Okay. So once again, usually I would say 85, 90% of the cases, when you see this word a, this word here, you will translate a like there is or there are. And then sometimes we also use this a as a time expression. And when we use this a as a time expression, that word will stand for ago or the word for in English, okay? We will check that in a few seconds. And then we also have this desde, that it's also a time expression. Desde means since, okay? And it's very similar like the way like you use in English, like I've been in this country since February, since 2021, since Tuesday. So in English, you'd say since, and then you would be specific about a specific moment in the past, like since yesterday, since 2022, since February, right? And in Portuguese, it's pretty much the same logic, okay? Now, I'm going to show you these two sentences here. The first one that we have here is Eu estive em Lisboa há ano. And the second one that we have here is Eu estou em Lisboa há ano. See that these two sentences, they are very, very similar. The only difference between these two sentences is that here we have estive, and estive, as you know, it's the verb estar in the past, simple past. And the second sentence we have eu estou, so it's the same verb, the verb estar, but now this is present tense, right? Eu estou, it's present tense. So my question for you is, what's the translation? How are you gonna translate this sentence? Eu estive em Lisboa há ano. Or, to be more precise, what's the translation for this word há? And how about the second one? The second one is Eu estou em Lisboa há ano. So how can you translate this correctly to English? And what's the translation that you think it works for this word here, há? Okay? So please take your time, stop this video if necessary, think a little bit, write down what you think, and then come back because I'm going to show you the right translation for these two words. Okay? All right, so I'm going to show you. I'm going to tell you that the first sentence that we have here, it's not too bad when you translate to English because word by word, if you translate word by word, it will work. So the translation for a in this case is ago. So in this case, the right translation for this sentence is I was in Lisbon 1 year ago. Okay. So the guideline is if you're using a, or if you're reading a text with this word a, and if that text is using the word a as a time expression, and if on that same sentence you can see that we have a verb in the past, usually simple past, the translation for a will be ago. I'm gonna repeat. If you notice that you're reading a text, reading a sentence, and you can find this word. And if you notice that, if you understand that we're using this as a time expression, if on that same sentence you can see a verb in the past, you will translate this like ago. Once again, word by word, this is I was in Lisbon 1 year ago, right? How about the second one? The second one is a little bit harder. Why? Because I'm going to tell you right away that the translation here is for, okay? The problem is that here, if you translate this word by word, this in English will be incorrect. So word by word, what I'm saying is I am in Lisbon for 1 year. This is not correct, okay? This in English doesn't work, this sentence. I am in Lisbon for 1 year. This is incorrect in English, okay? So the right translation for this sentence is I have been in Lisbon for 1 year, or I have lived in Lisbon for 1 year, which is pretty much the same thing in English, okay? So what I'm trying to say to you is that if you notice that we're using a as a time expression, and on that same sentence you can see a verb in the present tense, you will translate this a as for, okay? I'm going to show another example. Estou em Portugal há ano. So this is I have been in Portugal for 1 year. So once again, this the translation is for, just like here, because once again we're using estou, and estou, it's a verb in the present tense. All right? So this first sentence, it's not too bad because word by word this will work. I was in Portugal 1 year ago. The second one is a little bit harder because you're using here present tense, but in English this is not present tense. When you say I have been in Lisbon for 1 year, this is not present tense, and that's why it's hard for students to start using this structure correctly, okay? You really need repetition. You really need a teacher to start practicing this in a conversational way with you, and then you'll get there. Now, I'm going to ask you to read carefully these 4 questions that we have here. Take your time and try to complete answer these questions, and then I'm gonna show you the answers. Just gonna translate this with you. So, há quanto tempo? This construction here is like how long, okay? So there is word by word would be something like there is how much time, but this translation doesn't work. So há quanto tempo? These 3 words together just translate like how long, okay? In fact, I like to translate word by word because I think usually it helps students if you translate word by word to understand the structure, but sometimes it just doesn't work and it doesn't help. This is one of those examples. So, or for instance, if you're going to ask what time is it in Portuguese, it's que horas são, and if you translate que horas são word by word, it's like which hours are. That doesn't work. It doesn't help students. So it's easier for students to memorize que horas são, like what time is it. And in this case, I think it's pretty much the same logic. So, há quanto tempo, it's like how long. That's the translation. So this is like how long you've been studying Portuguese. Once again, this is how long you study Portuguese, but that's not correct, the translation. So, how long you've been studying Portuguese. And then, desde quando estuda português? Since when you've been studying Portuguese. Há quanto tempo moras neste país? So, how long you've been living in this country. Desde quando mora neste país? So since when you've been living in this country, okay? So please stop the video, answer these questions, and then please come back. I'm going to show you the answers. Okay, so number 1 is estudo português há 3 meses. So I've been studying Portuguese for 3 months. So verb in the present tense. A as a time expression, so this stands for the word for. Again, I've been studying Portuguese for 3 months. Number 2, desde quando estudo português? Estudo português desde fevereiro. Same logic, so I've been studying Portuguese since February. Okay, so once again we use present tense, estudo, but in English it doesn't work if you say I study Portuguese since February. You would say I've been studying Portuguese since February. The third one, há quanto tempo moras neste país? Moro neste país há 6 meses, so I've been living in this country for 6 months. And the last one, desde quando mora neste país? Moro neste país desde 2023. So I've been living in this country since 2023. Okay, thank you for watching. I'll see you shortly.